opportunities and connecting our communities in really profound ways. This is how we're able to be here. And like you guys can see beadwork being sold on social media in ways that are really helping to elevate our community and our community members. So I'm really excited to listen to these influencers and these leaders who are in these spaces and using these digital spaces to help advance our communities, their careers, be role models for younger people. And I'm really particularly excited for them to be speaking about the risks and opportunities to know, because it's Wild West out there on the internet. So, and also say hi to everyone online who's joined us. Thank you so much. Did I introduce myself? I'm Sage Paul. I'm the Executive and Artistic Director here at Indigenous Fashion Arts. So without further ado, we'll welcome our moderator, Shayla Stonechild, and our panelists, Scott Wabineau, Adeline Bird, and Kyron Potts. Awesome. And if you guys want to take it away, and please, I'd love for you guys to introduce yourselves and just let everyone know where you're from and more about the work you're doing.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Is my mic on? Yeah? Sweet. Danse, hello, welcome. Super excited to be here on Treaty 13 territory. My name is Shayla Stonechild. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm Métis and Nehiyaw from Muscogee First Nations Treaty 4 territory. A little bit about me, I just became a global yoga ambassador for Lululemon like 2 days ago, which was pretty exciting. And then I'm a content creator and also a public speaker and a really big advocate for Indigenous wellness. Indigenous wellness within this space, but also within the digital landscape. And so, Scott, I'll pass it to you. If you just want to introduce your name, the traditional territory from where you're from, a little bit about what you do, and everyone needs to tell me a little bit about your fits.
I mean, it's Fashion Week. We gotta. Oh yeah, who are you wearing, Shayla?
Oh, Leslie Hampton. Leslie Hampton.
Wajamisowe, Scott Wabineau Nitsingashu. My name is Scott Wabineau. I am from the Cree Nation of Wiskagnish, but I was born and raised in Moose Factory, Ontario, Moose Cree First Nation territory. Currently reside here in Dish with One Spoon, Treaty 13 territory, known as Tikaranto, where I work as a fashion stylist, fashion designer, creative director, and social media content creator as well too. And today I am wearing a collaboration between myself and LaSalle College. We did an upcycle collection, so I'm wearing some pieces of that. Wearing some Aldo shoes and some Aritzia jacket and some Wabineau gloves. But yes, it's so lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
Adeline.
Hi. I'm not even sure if this mic is sitting on my face. My name is Adeline Bird. I am Afro-Indigenous from Treaty 1 territory, but I am a member of Treaty 4 territory, Rolling River First Nations. And this is my puppy, Maigan. She's my life. Everything revolves around her these days. But I am a broadcast producer. I was a radio host for many years. I basically just work in media. I am currently breaking through television, which is a beast. But I am so excited for Indian country and the movement that is happening in film and television. And I'm so excited to be a part of that. I'm currently learning how to direct. I write. I've also produced stuff for CTV, had Shayla as one of the people that I got to showcase on the social. Done so much I can't remember. But what I do is really work in media, and I'm just excited for this whole movement on social media because it's really pushing for us to be in the forefront in the area that I'm in. So, congrats. Oh, what am I wearing? What am I wearing?
Yeah, earrings.
My earrings. Earrings by Brie. Yes, beads by Brie. Métis from where I'm from, Winnipeg, Manitoba. And I'm just wearing some New Balance slides because I'm working on a set right now and I'm on my feet for 10 hours. And I can't remember where I got my outfit from. I'm sorry. Miigwetchin, thank you for having me.
Abo Ashtet, Karen Potts Magepchat, Alexis Nakota, Sioux Nation Tedecha Hamotchat, My name is Kyron Potts. I am originally from Treaty 6 territory, from the Alexis Dakota Sioux Nation, and also from the Paul First Nation. But I'm making my home in Toronto as well. I actually just moved back 5 or 6 days ago, so I'm like coming back again to a community and just getting used to being on the East Coast again. I am I do a lot of things. Let's see. I am a social media content creator, obviously, but I do youth advocacy work. Specifically, I am a social worker for Child and Family Services. I also do work with queer Indigenous youth as an advocate. I am the National Youth Representative for Two Spirits in Motion Society, which is a nonprofit organization that helps provide services and resources to Indigenous queer youth all across the nation. And then I'm also a TV host and a Twitch live streamer, like a gamer. And I most recently just finished working on Snapchat's first Canadian original series, where I got to host a television show called Reclaimed, which is coming out this summer, so stay tuned for that. And then also, in my free time, I just do a lot of like really funny, lighthearted content, spreading some laughter and some good medicine online in the social area. And today I am wearing also Leslie, and I'm also wearing Copper Canoe Women on my ears. Oh, my bad. Yeah, so that's the fit. Ish nish, thanks.
I mean, we are in the presence of complete powerhouses. So if we can give a round of applause for our guests, our speakers today.
Wow.
And it's about creating community here. So I invite you to introduce yourself to someone close to you and just share one piece that you're also wearing, or maybe one piece you want to get during this next few days at Indigenous Fashion Arts. So introduce yourself and then what piece you're wearing or someone you want to support this week. I'll give you about like 2-3 minutes.
Hi, Shayla. Nice to meet you.
Mobilizing.
Oh yeah, I don't have anything from them.
Cute.
You don't own anything from them?
No, I don't have anything from them. No, I don't.
Let's see.
That's a good one.
They sell out quickly.
They what?
They sell out quickly.
Yeah, I know. They
They're
always
like
do.
they just drop and then it's gone in
Yeah,
like a minute.
always. That's
Hello. Awesome. Give you about 10 more seconds just to wrap it up. Awesome. So we're here today and this weekend to create community and to create connection and to create maybe new friends and networks and support one another. Like I had mentioned, we're kind of sitting in front of Indigenous powerhouses, and I know that we're now looking at you further into your career. But I specifically want to know a little bit more about where you got started and, you know, all these visions that you have now. Where did they come from? And for you specifically, Scott, I know you just had an interview on E-Talk, and he was also a stylist on the Lululemon's global campaign with me, which was a treat having other Indigenous people on set. And now you're like decked out in your own gear, and you have new drops coming. And so I'm wondering, where did your vision to become a stylist begin? Where did everything that you're doing now begin?
Honestly, I feel like everybody is kind of a fashion stylist in their own way. And, you know, I feel like I've always just had an appreciation for fashion growing up. Like, you know, I grew up in powwow, I grew up in ceremony, so I got a lot of my fashion inspiration from regalias and just a different type of ceremonial wear, and just got the appreciation for that, and seeing like the beadwork that was involved, and, you know, the applique and so many sewing and all of the, you know, all of the stuff that really makes up a garment in traditional fashion. And, you know, that's kind of where I really kind of got inspiration from with my daily life, because I also love streetwear. I love streetwear. I love hoodies. You know, I love T-shirts. I just love how casual and comfortable they are. But I also love incorporating my Two-Spirit identity and also my Cree identity with anything that I do. And if it's a way I could do it through fashion, I try my best to do that in any way that I can. You know, whether I'm wearing a medallion or beaded earrings or a beaded hat, even too, ribbon shirt. There are so many just different aspects that I kind of think about and incorporate into my everyday wardrobe. But you know, like I said, like I guess my fashion career kind of started while I was in school, actually. I came to Toronto back in 2017. I was studying at Humber College for Fashion Arts and Business. Shout out to Humber. I see some Humber alumni over there. Yes. So yeah, and like when I first got to college, you know, I just really wanted to be immersed in the industry. You know, I wanted to learn every in and outs of it. You know, I wanted to learn the photography. I wanted to learn creative. You know, I wanted to learn art direction. I wanted to learn visual merchandising, styling. You know, I didn't really want to limit myself. So while I was in school, that's kind of where I got my nick for styling, you know, and throughout my life, I've always heard comments about my style, just like how, you know, I'm always well put together, whatever. So I thought, you know, why not make a career out of it? Like, I enjoy dressing my friends, I enjoy styling myself and other people as well too. So luckily, that's when I kind of bumped past with Leslie Hampton and was looking for an internship at the time, and she was looking for an intern. So creator worked his magic, and I started working with Leslie Hampton and started styling all of her lookbooks and styling her TV appearances as well too. So she kind of gave me that that in and that kind of that knowledge, I guess you could say, that I needed, and that stepping stone for myself. So I don't know. It's really hard to pinpoint when I started styling. Yeah.
It's accumulation of different experiences and different people. What I love about your story is the relationship you built with Leslie and how she became a mentor, and she kind of gave you that guide. And I think a lot of us are in positions where we can be mentors for other Indigenous folks, for everyone here, as well as each and every one of you. So I love that you brought up mentorship and also the power of education. You got a little tagline with Humber College here. Was that sponsored? Just kidding.
I'll get my check after the show.
And so really showing the power of community. And I love, Adeline, the power of community that you bring into every position that you're in, because I know you've worked for several different companies, several different productions. And so where did your vision kind of stem? Did you always want to, I know you wear a lot of hats. You're like a producer, a writer. What was little Adeline's vision? How did you get to where you are now?
So I grew up in the west end of Winnipeg. I always say it's a big urban res. And I grew up in the 400 block of Langside, and, you know, I grew up with a single mom, and I always loved the arts. We never went away on vacations or anything like that, so I was always in my room dreaming. I would cut out magazines, anything that looked cool. Like, I remember there's this photo of, I think it was like En Vogue or somebody, I can't remember who, but they were wearing like leather and stuff, total cultural appropriation. But just seeing, you know, as a woman with my skin color wearing something that, you know, was from my culture was always just like, whoa! And I would always take pieces of magazines and just like put them everywhere all over my wall. My mom would be like, what are you doing? I had no idea that I was collaging and just vision boarding, really. But I was young. I didn't have access to things. I love listening to the radio. I always listened to Rick D's weekly Top 40 every Saturday. would sit there with my recorder and like record all my favorite songs and put my voice in there and be like, yeah, so this is my radio show. Next song that's coming up. I'd create my own countdown. And just was always watching media, always just consumed with it. And I didn't realize that I was manifesting that as I got older. I went to school for, I started off at university. I went to school for social work, did that, worked in the community for many years, and then went to school for fashion marketing and merchandising at the Design of Technology. And, I can't remember. I don't even think it's there anymore. I'm not even sure. But that was the moment, going to that school was the moment that I could understand that I'm a visual person. I'm a visual and audio person. And so would do these really cute projects, same as Scott, would do some designs, create windows. That's what we call them. We create like windows, like what would you do if you were working for Alexander McQueen? Just things like that, and just being open to a world that really a girl like me from the west end of Winnipeg wouldn't have access to. And that was another thing. One of the things that I'm realizing is that I always had to leave and then come back home, and that's always been the thing. Is I leave and I come back home and create more space for people in my community. And as Shayla said, community is so important for me. Being on a set where you're the only Indigenous person or the only person of color is really, really exhausting and can be really, really intimidating. And so for me, making sure that people are included, making sure that people are on set, because our stories are important. Right from costumes to the scripts, all of that stuff is so detailed and so important. So seeing other community members, even if people are just coming on just to say hi, is always just really, really fascinating and really, like, it feels like home, and it's important that we have those spaces that are, I'm starting to learn to stay away from saying a safe space, because there is really no such thing, but I can help make safer spaces. So yeah, I now work in television. I've been preparing myself since I was a little girl, copying Janet Jackson on television, whoever I can, Paula Abdul, and now I'm on screen. I got the opportunity to act at home. That's the other thing. I'm still processing everything that I experienced, but I got to act on Little Bird. I got to act on another comedy series called Acting Good. Like, what a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. But like I said, I didn't know I was preparing myself from 7-year-old Adeline. I was preparing myself that whole entire time. But that's the beauty of who we are when we use our imagination and we dream and we go for everything that we deserve and that is rightfully ours.
Oh. I love that you brought up, you didn't even realize that you're creating like vision boards and then embodying kind of what you wanted to be doing at a young age. And so that idea of imagination and imagining ourselves in places that we're usually not included in or represented in. And I know a big part of this comes with storytelling, telling our stories within these spaces. And I know that, Kyron, you have told a lot of stories with a lot of different characters through TikTok and through social media, but you also tell your own story and how much challenges you went through growing up with your two-spirit identity. And so I'm wondering, little Kyron, where did this vision come from? And maybe even if you feel called to speak of some of those challenges that you've also faced.
Yeah. Little Kyron actually wasn't Little Kyron. Little Kyron was actually Little Stefan. That was the name that I was born with. And that in itself is just one example of how I've kind of chosen to take power of over my own life and my own kind of way that I express myself. And yeah, I did grow up, I guess, with a lot of adversity, and I hate using that word, but just things that I really shouldn't have gone through that were a little out of my control. And if you know anybody who has been through the foster care system or who has been orphaned, you understand how how serious a lot of that can be for developmental growth as a young person, especially as a young femme-presenting Indigenous man. It was really, really rough. And so I grew up, my father left before I was born, and my mom passed away when I was quite young, when I was 7, after I had been in foster care for 4 years. And so it was a really sort of broken, dysfunctional home. It was just myself and my 2 brothers left, and we ended up getting adopted back into my birth family through my mom's sister, who also passed away after taking care of me for 10 years. So it was a lot of loss, a lot of grief, a lot of feeling like I didn't have a family system, a lot of just like growing up and seeing other nuclear families, non-Indigenous families usually, and just kind of like wondering why my life wasn't like that, or wondering like who's gonna look after me. And so a big part of the storytelling now that I do, and a lot of the content that I make is really aimed at Indigenous joy. It's aimed at laughter as medicine, but also laughter as like just a way to cope. And so I think that really comes from a need to find and create community for myself, because I didn't have it growing up a lot of the time. And I spent a lot of time in reserves in the prairies in Alberta growing up, and they were really they were beautiful for what they were, but they were also places of a lot of violence and a lot of attacks on my spirit, on me, and it's just not easy being a really feminine Indigenous man with all of these like expectations about how to be a man and what that means, and some contradictions between what I'm being taught in ceremony and how I live my life. There was just a lot of internal battles going on, and now that I'm much older and I've gotten the teachings that I have, and I've gone through what I've gone through, I'm really just in a place now of just unapologetically celebrating and sharing all of the love that I feel like I wasn't allowed to have when I was younger, and being proud of the way that I walk, or the way that I talk, or my makeup, or my mannerisms, or my spirit, or anything like that, my femininity. I'm sort of like making up for lost time, I feel like. And so a lot of my stories that I'm telling, and these characters that I'm making, all of that, it just comes from a place of wanting to create a sense of community and really show other young people who may have gone through things like that. Because like in Alberta alone, the overrepresentation of Indigenous youth in care is something like 80% or something. Like every kid in care almost is Indigenous, and that just goes to show you that there's something going on there, something bigger at work. And so those are the areas that really call to me, and those are areas where I feel a great sense of duty, not only as an Indigenous person, but specifically as a Two-Spirit person. Because a lot of the things that I was told about being Two-Spirit revolve around being somebody who kind of goes in that in-between, where there's discomfort, and where things are hard, and that's where you do the learning and the healing and the growing. And so I always like to say that I'm one of those in-between persons. I exist in that weird space where a lot of people can't really be, and I can kind of be whatever I need to be in that space, with however that looks and however that sounds. And sometimes it looks like being online a lot, because that's where young people are. And I didn't choose to like, oh, I want to be an influencer, because I don't even use that word. Like, I'm not an influencer. I'm a youth advocate. I've been doing social work since I was 14 years old. It just so happens that every single youth you meet has a smartphone and is constantly online. So I gotta go where the young people are. And so my experience online is gonna be a lot different than somebody who just goes online to post photos of their food and some selfies. It's different because it's a job for me. It's my full-time gig. And so it needs to be looked at through a different lens. And everybody uses social media, I think, for a different tool. And so social media is really just like my painter's paintbrush, or a hammer, or like something, it's just a tool in my toolkit that I get to use to do the youth advocacy work that I do. And it doesn't always look like that. Sometimes it looks like doing things like this in person, or literally me driving out to the res to go and hang out with young people for the entire day and just make videos with them and talk to them about their dreams and their goals. And that kind of stuff is really what is super important to me. And getting the message out and reaching all of those young people, you can't deny how powerful of a tool social media is in bringing that kind of mass like awareness. And so
Yeah.
yeah, just kind of like focusing mainly on bringing that sense of community and showing up all the time and being loud on purpose. And a lot of people say, oh, Kai, you center your queerness and your indigeneity so much online. Like, you know, like if that's the only thing that's interesting about you, are you really interesting? And I'm like, it's different. It's like I'm doing it on purpose. There's a reason why I'm so loud. There's a reason why I'm screaming with a megaphone that I'm queer and indigenous, because there aren't a lot of people doing it. And young people don't get to see that a lot. And so of course I'm gonna be as loud as I can, because these young people, I almost feel like sometimes it's like being a lighthouse in a big storm. These young people are looking online for people that are like them, people that grew up like them, people that sound and look and act like them, because they want to feel like they belong, or like there is some other people out there, there's community out there. And they look around and then they might see a video of mine going viral or something, and it's like this lighthouse in the distance, and they're like, hey, I see you, you know, like I see you, I get you, like keep doing you. Like that's powerful, that's really powerful. And it's not even a stretch to say that that kind of stuff is like life-saving work. It's life promotion, but it's definitely like, it's really serious. And I know that it is because of just the amount of young people that come up and talk to me and say like, you really are like helping me wake up in the morning, and like seeing this kind of stuff really makes me proud to be who I am, and I never thought that I would be proud to be who I am, and just things like that. So
Suicide prevention.
absolutely. Well, I don't even like saying that word. I just say like it's just celebrating life, because Indigenous young people deserve to be happy. They deserve to be enjoying their life. It's not really about just getting through it and tolerating it and handling it. It's not battle after battle after battle. It's celebration. You get to have fun. You get to take a break. You deserve to go on vacation. You deserve to be posting your selfies shamelessly and loving yourself. Like, you're allowed to have fun. And so that's really what it's all about, is just Indigenous joy and laughter, and really trying to spread that good energy, that miopamatsuin. And in my language we say chinaptawashte. It's like just good medicine is really what it is.
Yeah, I love how you spoke to, you know, at first you were speaking to your trauma, but at the end you really transmuted that through your storytelling, through your advocacy. And I think that's what a lot of Indigenous people are now doing, is we're transmuting that pain and that grief and that trauma, and we're finding the light. And sometimes that light comes through other people's light. And so, Kyron, thank you for sharing a part of your story and for sharing with us a part of your light here today. And so you also spoke to the power of Indigenous representation. And I know that Indigenous representation has been kind of, you know, amplified, and a lot of people are talking about it. And this can create a lot of, you know, maybe uneasy feelings around representation. And so my question for each one of you is, do you think Indigenous representation is important? And if so, why? Whoever wants to take it first, we don't have to keep going.
I think, yeah, obviously it's important. Indigenous people are not.
Representation is a form of harm
critical.
reduction as well, too.
It really
Absolutely,
is.
Yes.
absolutely.
And it helps to dispel a lot of myths about Indigenous people. And like digital natives get a bad rep a lot of the time too. They take a lot of the heat for a lot of different things. Some deserving, some not so much, some unfair. But in terms of like dispelling myths, representation is important, because Indigenous people are not a monolith. There are so many different nations out there in what's now called Canada, and all of these different nations have so many beautiful things that are unique to their nations. Things like languages, clothing, food, teachings, like everything is so different. I'm from Treaty 6 territory, and I'm Stoney. I'm Wood Stoney Nakota, and I'm surrounded by Crees everywhere. There's Crees everywhere. There's Crees everywhere in Canada, but
I'm not even mad about that.
And in media, and in media.
Yeah. And if you go just a little bit south, you're gonna run into more Stonies, but you're also gonna run into Blackfoot people. And in that entire nation in southern, you know, Treaty 7 territory, they are so different. And the amount of people that have come up and who have like just conflated the two and have always like just assumed that I'm Blackfoot or assumed that I'm Cree or anything like that, just because I live in the area, or that's the only version of Indigenous that they've seen. And there's just a lot of pan-indigeneity happening online, and representation really helps because we get to say, hi, I'm so-and-so, or Abawashtet, my name is Kyron, I am Stony, I am Nakota, I am from this area, these are my people, I'm proud of this, instead of saying, I'm Indigenous like everyone else, and there's millions of us, and we're all the same, getting painted with the same brush. So representation helps to dispel a lot of those myths that were really started, I think, a lot by those like black and white films and like
Yeah.
cowboys and Indians, of
Yep.
where they don't
Yep.
care about matching the language to the like the things that they're wearing or like the cultures that they have. Everything is just not researched properly, and so we are really, hopefully, a lot of us are making sure that we are being really strict about saying we are from this nation, and that helps to defend against accusations of being like a pretendian, because there's so many of them out there, which is a really big problem. And making sure that when you go up, you say proudly, "This is where I'm from," and like because that's how we are. And like I say we, not to mean like all Indigenous people, but like that's what I was taught. Is like that's what you say when you go up and you meet people. It's like, I'm proud to be from this nation, and representation will give that to you, because if you don't see other types of Indigenous people, you assume that they're all the same. And it's easy to do that on social media because not a lot of non-Indigenous organizations are making that separation between the two. They just say, hey, happy Indigenous Peoples History Month, let's invite in 40 different types of nations and then just call them all Indigenous and give them all, star blankets.
Right.
It's not fair.
And to speak to what Kai had said earlier about, their youth online looking to see themselves, I didn't have that as an Afro-Anishinaabe woman, young girl. I never had that. And now you see all these, Afro-Indigenous people just taking up space, sharing their lives. And I just think, wow, it makes me emotional because I didn't have that growing up. And to know that there are kids out there that have that is just like, whoa, like, what a time to be alive. So back in 2020, after the murder of George Floyd, I was pulled up to the table in media to talk about what diversity and inclusion means. And what was interesting was, at the time, everybody was using the word BIPOC, and I didn't see any Indigenous people at the tables that I was being pulled up at. I was like, hey, we're using this word, but where are my Indigenous relatives? Where are we? And so I ended up helping produce the social episode with an all-Indigenous female panel, and just hearing the feedback from that, everybody being like, wow, we didn't know that Shayla existed. We didn't know that Danielle existed. Oh my gosh, you women are so amazing. I'm like, what are you talking about? Of course we are. And you all didn't know that? Wow. But it's that piece. It's that piece of, any time that we are at the table, making sure that we pull up and that we are representing and we are doing that work, because this stuff saves lives, like
Agreed.
seeing myself, seeing, people who look like my mom, my auntie, all that saves my life. It saved my life over and over and over again. And that's why I push so hard to make sure that representation is there, and that I'm going to just admit that I've been tokenized more than a few times that I would like to admit. But that's all a part of the experience of learning and growing and, as an artist. But yeah.
Yeah. Adeline, I can agree. There's this, obviously, if you're the first person within, the first person that looks like you to do something, I've been toying with this idea of tokenization. I'm like, is it tokenization, or is it just the fact that we haven't been in these spaces before?
Right, that's a great point.
Because
That's
it's like
great point.
someone has to do
do it
Exactly.
to know.
And I think it comes down, though, to like the long-term relationships
Right.
of that. If it's just a one-off, or if it's just a one post, or if it's like, where's the longevity to our relationship?
Yes.
And so, yeah, that's something that I think of through tokenization. And for you, Scott, what do you think I'm like, obviously, we all think Indigenous representation is important here, but why do you think it's so important within fashion? Because I know oftentimes a lot of our prints and a lot of our designs can be culturally appropriated within the fashion space. And so why do you think it's so important within the fashion industry itself?
Well, it's just to reclaim back the narrative that we've lost, you know, from colonization. It's to ensure that our stories are being told more respectfully and more knowledgeably as well too. I think it's really important to just call out anybody and all these other brands who are kind of using the word BIPOC and not including Indigenous representation, because it's like, it's ridiculous, you know? Indigenous peoples have been on this earth since time immemorial, and the fact that it's not that we're underrepresented, we're systemically excluded from all of these conversations, you know, and from all of these tables and all of these boards and everything too. So it's just using our voice, you know, using our platforms that we have on this digital space, you know, using our community to help create that change, you know, bringing everyone together. Yeah, I just really think that Indigenous representation and more Indigenous presences within the industry is going to really dismantle the white supremacy that's kind of underlying within fashion right now. You know, it's very colonial, it's very harmful. You know, a lot of people don't talk about how, you know, unsafe and harmful the fashion industry is to the planet. And, you know, as Indigenous peoples, as caretakers of our Mother Earth, you know, I feel like when we have more of our people fulfilling these roles and, you know, occupying these spaces and leading these conversations and leading these tables, the fashion industry could change for the better, you know, and start being more sustainable and being more, you know, just more mindful of where we source our clothes from and how we source our clothes, you know. And whether you like it or not, everybody's in the fashion industry. Whether you actively participate, whether you actively watch runway shows, you know, everybody is a part of this industry, whether you like it or not. You know, we're all wearing clothes for shelter. And the way that and I think it's really important to change our mindset on the way we look at our clothes, you know, because for the longest time we've been viewing it as a commodity, you know, because of colonization and the way that it kind of just ingrained in us. Whereas before colonization, we've seen it as an extension of our identity, you know, we used it as a way to tell our stories, you know, tell our families' histories, you know, tell people where we're from even, tell people if we're single or taken. You know, there are so many different aspects that we use fashion for growing up way before colonization, way before, you know, the settlers have stepped foot on Turtle Island. So I think it's important to bring that appreciation back, bring that love for fashion back, and, you know, just bring our power back as well too within fashion, because like I said, colonization really did a toll, and I think it's time to just take that shit out now. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of power, I think a lot of these decisions come from people with the power. And a lot of those people are non-Indigenous. And so for me personally, on my journey of working with different brands or organizations or companies, I really have to come back to my values and the company's values. And so I know each of us has our own process, but how do you decide if you want to work with this corporation or this brand or this production? Like, what do you yourself, like, what's your checklist before saying yes to someone? Adeline, you're laughing.
I'm laughing because I always, one of the things that I'm learning, especially in television, is I always want to be a part of projects that are Indigenous led, just because of how harmful the television industry is and can be. I've been on sets where things have come out, and that whole experience of hearing that and it made sense that I was on a set where it wasn't led by an Indigenous woman. It made sense, and that was really, really traumatizing for me. And so now my decision, how I make my decisions is based on who's leading, and it has to be led by an Indigenous person.
And then do you, like, if it's not Indigenous led, do you provide like kind of like, this is what you need to be doing, or do you give them
I'm
like, or you're just like,
exhausted
no?
of doing that.
Yeah.
I've been doing that for so long that I'm just like tired of that now. You know, it's I used to, and now I'm just like, if it's not led by one of us, then I just can't partake anymore, because it's this constant having to educate. Especially when you're on a television set, everything's moving so quickly, you know, and you have deadlines, you have all these things. So to constantly be trying to educate and have people understand why certain things aren't okay or are okay and why we need them. It's, you know, things like smudging on set. You know, we have to fight for things like that just to have a smudge bowl on set. So just things like that. Like it's just really important for me, because I'm getting old, y'all. Like I'm getting exhausted.
Well, and it shouldn't always be on our backs to
Exactly.
be the one always voicing everything for everyone.
Exactly.
And I know that a lot of responsibility can be put on our shoulders because we do have those ties directly to our community. And sometimes we are advocating for our community, but we also have to recognize that we're also ourselves. And like Kyron had said, we're not monolithic, and we all have different perspectives on what we should and shouldn't be doing. Kyron, I know you recently have dove a little bit more into working with brands. And so what has that experience been like for you? And is there also a checklist that you do before working with brand?
It's wild, y'all. It's I found that it's a lot of imposter syndrome right off the bat, because it's like, oh, why do they want little old me? Like, you know, I don't know if I can give them what they want, or like someone could probably do it better all the time, right? Totally discrediting everything that I've done. But in terms of like working with brands specifically, I was self-managing for about a year before I decided to start working with an agency and working with a manager. And that whole year of being on my own, answering all of my emails while also working 45 hours a week for my day job, which was my full-time gig, I did all of the like social media, brand partnership, all that kind of stuff as a side thing, just because it started to randomly start coming in. And I didn't know that it was gonna come in. That was never the goal. The goal was, like I said earlier, to just have fun and make people laugh and just be myself. And then all of a sudden there are these brands, big brands too sometimes, like you don't really know when they're gonna come, but they'll randomly come out of nowhere. And they're these big systems, big intimidating systems of like, hey Kai, we need this, this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this from you. Like, what's your rate? And I'm just like, and then if you get like 6 of those emails in one day, and then there's these deadlines and timelines, and you don't know anything about these brands, you don't know their history, you don't know how many people are gonna be at the gig with you, or at the photo shoot, or who are gonna be in the campaign, who are gonna be on the panel. So definitely at the start, it was really hard for me to figure out, do I want to say yes to this? Because it's easy to see a big, or what I thought was big at the time, like, oh my God, $500 and I only have to do 1 day of work? Like, I was freaking out, right? And seeing that kind of stuff, and then just wanting to say yes, because there's that like poor kid in me who just hustled his whole life and just is like, oh, yes, I've made it, you know? They want to pay me $500 for 1 day of work, and I'm like, woohoo, freaking out. There's that need and that want to be like, yeah, I want to do that because it would make life easier. It would help with my bills. I would be less stressed. But as I got more experience working with brands, I started to realize that like the energy that I put into these partnerships and the intention that they have and that I have and that we both bring together is really important. And I try so hard to always make sure that anything that I am partnering with is something that I can be proud of, something that sits well with me when I go to sleep at night, or if I have to answer to my community or any of my family members or anything like that. Like, I can say, this is why I did it confidently, and that I'm not doing harm, that I'm not participating in harm. And creator forbid, if it did end up like becoming a situation where it did do a lot of harm, kind of really figuring out why it did, how it got to that point, what was missed. Because we're all forever learners. Like this digital native space that's happening right now, this phenomenon of young native people being everywhere now, it's new to us. It's new to everybody. Like, when in the last 10 years or 15 years have you ever even seen this many young, like teenagers too, like Indigenous people taking up all of these new spaces, we are still learning as a whole community how to navigate these spaces, and therefore, yes, we're gonna make mistakes. Yes, we're gonna like bump our heads and fall down a couple of times. Some of us aren't in it for the right reasons too. There's a little bit of that, but also just totally not understanding and being railroaded by huge manipulating organizations and companies who have fine print and who have really crazy contracts. That's why I started working with a manager, because I realized I didn't have the skill set to manage massive 40-page contracts that have all these little stipulations that can say who I work with, what I say, and all these different things. And so I found that working with somebody who had that experience behind them was really helpful. And now I just kind of like let them handle it. But I have a checklist of like, who are the other people that I'm working with? Because I really need to know. I also like to know if it is a non-Indigenous organization, what is their reason for asking me to be a part of it? Because a lot of them ask me specifically to talk a lot about my indigeneity and my queerness at the same time. They really treat me like a golden goose, like they got, oh, we got the gay thing and the native thing, woohoo, you check off so many boxes for us, woohoo, this is awesome. And with that comes like that feeling of being tokenized and like, am I just here because they needed, you know, I'm just like a triple whammy or something? Or is this genuine? And if it is genuine, let's kind of push them on it and put a little pressure like, okay, so you want to help, why don't you do this? Or like, how about we do this? And if they're immediately like, no, you just kind of just do this and like, that's your job and da-da-da, then it's like, we're not doing a partnership. You're filling a space in with me, and that's not the kind of work I want to do. That's not how I want to roll. That's not how and there's going to be more partnerships to take after that if I say no to that one. I know that there's going to be, because I make sure that I do things with good intentions. And I think too is getting paid what you are worth.
Yes.
And finding out, it takes a long time to find out what you're worth. Let me tell you. You can get like $10,000 for something that you think is worth $100, and then opposite too, right? So it's just trying to, like, I haven't been in the industry for very long, and like even working on a huge show like the Snapchat show, which is going to be in front of millions of people. It's being premiered at the Banff Film Festival. Like that kind of stuff is all just like this new world, and I'm still kind of like pinching myself and wondering when I'm going to wake up. But it's just really good to have good people around you who have been in the industry, who really care about you. At the end of the day, like they want what's best for you, and they'll tell you, like, especially Indigenous aunties too, they'll come up and be like, Kyron, don't sign that. What are they doing? Let me see that. Like, they know they're looking out for you.
I've done it to Shayla.
Yeah, I've called Adeline.
Yeah, it's like, help, they want me to do this, is it okay? And like, oh, so-and-so wants me to do a campaign. Am I gonna get canceled? Like, there's also that fear too, is like, you just don't know. And so doing research and like having real conversations with their team and sitting down and being like, what are the intentions here? What are you getting out of this? How is this coming back to the community? How is my voice going to influence in a positive, healing kind of way the kind of work that I wanna bring? It's the same reason why I don't partner with like Hudson's Bay, for example, or like organizations like that, where it's like not to call anyone out.
But see, that's the beauty. We have those decisions, right? Some people can go and do that, and some people choose not
and
to.
more power to them. Like they get to make their choice. I get to make my choice. We all have our own reasons for doing whatever we do, and there's no shame in anyone's game. It's just really about you and your relationship to your intention, what your goal is at the end of the day. Like, what am I trying to achieve here? Am I trying to get a fat paycheck? Am I trying to get a big payday, or am I trying to change the world in one little tiny way? You know, how is this partnership with a coffee company gonna help people, gonna inspire people? The way that it's going to is that you hijack the campaign and you tell your own story and you say, hey, no, I'm not gonna smile and like pose with your thing. I'm gonna do it with like community members. I'm gonna bring in my elder and have tea with her and have coffee with her with your logo on it, and we're gonna discuss some hardcore, like, real things that are happening that are gonna make a difference, because no one else in the campaign is doing it and no one has suggested it. And that's how I'm gonna make my impact impactful and make my influence really positive in that space. And sometimes they like it, sometimes they don't, but that's why we are those people that go in the in-between when it's uncomfortable. because we really got to shake it up and twist things around. And that's why you want Indigenous, like, young people in your stuff, because we're deadly.
I love it.
Take a deep breath.
Shayla,
Agreed.
can I flip that on you? That question on you? Because
I'm the host. Just
Because
kidding.
I want to hear how you do it.
For me, yeah, honestly, when I started content creating, there wasn't a lot of Indigenous people doing partnerships and working with bigger brands, so I didn't really have many people to look to. And so I think one of the first brands that I worked with was Lululemon. And so Lululemon, I've been working with for 4 years, and I think they're a really good example as to what magic you can create when you have non-Indigenous people listening to what you're saying and then actually putting it into action. I feel like there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk. A lot of talk. And then there's like no real embodiment of that action. And so honestly, I had to like have several conversations with them, have kind of like a blueprint of like, this is what I see myself doing in the future. You're either in or you're out. I can bring other people to the table. But if you're not going to, pay them what they're worth, and if you're not going to say yes, then this is probably just both a waste of our times because we're not on the same vision together.
Right.
And so I think coming back to that vision of, saying yes to that one partnership, but then it's like, okay, is this a one-off? And if it is, how can I tell a story and get a messaging out there? Or is there a way that we can create a longer partnership so that we can achieve much more? So, because I think also too, a lot of the time when you are saying yes to things, you are accountable to a community, and you're accountable to your followers and the people that you actually have close relationships in real life with. And so for me, I think of those relationships before I think of saying yes to that money. And honestly, I had to turn down the company we were talking about because they weren't ready to take accountability. I said the first step you should be doing is take accountability for the history and the ethics that you've had. And they weren't ready for that conversation. So I said, well, I'm not ready to work with you.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just like do an invitation and some calls to action after that. And so one of the visions though with Lululemon for this new campaign was to bring other Indigenous people on. And I knew right away that I wanted to bring on you, Scott, as the stylist. And so for you personally, is there a checklist that you do before you work with brands or before you say yes to something? What is kind of your personal checklist?
Well, usually I'm always like, you either accept, if you want to have me, you're going to have all of me. And that usually consists of my community, my knowledge keepers, my elders, my friends, just people I turn to. And I always ensure that, that we're not being tokenized. Like, I know getting into this industry in my first year, like, it was really hard to figure out what was, like, tokenism and what was just if they were actually, really wanting to create systemic change with me as well. So it was really hard navigating that for a while, but luckily with people like you and Kai and Adeline, showing me the different ways and, having you guys as besties as well too, and just discussing everything, it really did kind of put in perspective on what I really need in order to kind of work with that brand, and just following your what you said and Kai said, we really need to ensure that they're, not just tokenizing us, but actually working towards creating systemic change. However, like what Adeline was saying, it's really important. It's really nice when they bring Indigenous people onto the campaign or into their company as well too. And that brings a sort of trust, you feel like you're being seen, you feel very like, okay, they're actually doing it right. But oftentimes, sometimes, they could have as much Indigenous people on a campaign, but they could still completely drop the ball in some things, really talking about the Sephora Canada campaign that happened last year. And, it really did it gave me a little bit of trauma too, and gave me a little bit of like, oh crap, like, if I could work with my own people as well too and still kind of be, not taken care of in the way that I take care of my community as well too, it it really did traumatize me on working with other brands. And when Lululemon approached me and Shayla to work on this styling campaign, I was a little hesitant at first too, because I've worked on Indigenous History Month campaigns in the past that really weren't the greatest. So, but establishing that conversation with them, and just really vocalizing your needs and your worries is really important. That's something that I am really persistent on whenever I work with any brand. I always tell them, like I said, I tell them all about me. I tell them my story, and if they're gonna accept me, they gotta accept all of me, and which is my community and everything that I come from. So, yeah, it's still trying to navigate my way. But like we said, it's still a learning process, and this is such a first time ever in history that we're seeing so much Indigenous representation and Two-Spirit representation, Afro-Indigenous representation. There's so much identities that really fill up being Indigenous, and it's just really empowering and beautiful to be a part of this movement alongside all of you. So, yeah, it's just all about learning.
Yeah, and learning sometimes comes with that uncomfortableness of growth and expansion. And I like that you were being honest and you brought up a campaign from last year where it didn't feel safe and it didn't feel like a brave space. And I think it's important that as much as we acknowledge our highlights within our career, social media is really good at acknowledging the highlights. We also have to acknowledge the lateral violence and sometimes the lateral harm that happens within the digital space.
Yes.
And so my question for each and every one of you is just like, how do you deal with lateral violence, and how can we begin to transmute that into what Kyron was saying, lateral love? That's
a big question for real.
It's a hard question because it's so. It's really sad, first of all, but it also kind of shakes you because we build up these walls, these protective, thick hide skins against hate online in the online space because it's rampant. If you go in at any moment, I can go into my comment section like right now and show you 5 or 6. I get like these trolls who make all these different accounts just to constantly bring me down. And so a big part of my job is going through and deleting all of those comments so that young people don't see them and doing that work. And I'm getting really used to deflecting shots from non-Indigenous people and people who are transphobic and homophobic and racist. But I was never taught how to defend myself from my own community. And that's really, it feels like a turtle who's upside down. You're really exposed because you don't expect it coming from the inside. And that's when it hurts the most.
Yeah.
And those shots get through the gate, and they really affect you, and they penetrate you because they rock your foundation. They start to get into your head about like, you're not even on the right path. You're doing harm in the community. You're a joke. Everybody thinks that you start really telling yourself all of these beautiful or awful things, and you believe them too. And that's the hard part. It's like people from the community who I look up to, people who I've idolized, people who have been taking as role models for me, have said really awful things about me, who have said that I'm a pretendian, who have accused me regardless of I don't know how much more I can prove that not only does my community love me and celebrate me, they really are out here supporting me and they claim me. We shouldn't really have to be doing things like that. But when that stuff happens, it really starts to play into that imposter syndrome a little bit. But it also and I hate the term crabs in a bucket like mentality. Sometimes it does feel like that, but it just feels like it's obviously coming from a place of trauma, and seeing somebody who is Indigenous, who is taking up space, who is getting opportunities, who is finally able to get any type of like economic sovereignty or generational wealth for once in their life, for once in their family's life. Who's able to go on a plane for the first time, who's able to travel, who can perform at an award show, who's doing anything, any like minuscule amount of success should not be a direct attack against you. It should not make you angry. And if it does, really sit there and wonder why. Why is this young person's success, and young Indigenous people are this demographic who have been so constantly underrepresented and like underfunded and like treated so badly, and there's so much oppression there that's hard for them to get into those spaces. And so when they finally do, and you're having this negative reaction to it, it's really a great moment to just stop and think like, why do I feel this way? Why am I having such a visceral, angry, negative response to somebody's light shining, just shining? That's all it is. And it really comes back to that trauma. It's like a bruise, like this like rotten thing that's festering inside of somebody. And when they see light, the light exposes that shadow that's there, and it really makes people act in erratic, really dangerous, like violent ways, where they will do anything that they can to really knock you down a peg, to remind you that like you can succeed, but don't succeed more than me. Because if you succeed more than me, not only are you gonna make me look bad, but you're gonna let everybody else. You're gonna expose to me that I did not reach the potential that I have put out for myself, and remind me that I am not living up to my own perceived notion of what I should be doing and how I should be successful. And it's happening so much, and really the only people who are talking about it are the people that are like experiencing it.
Yeah.
And I would really love for there to be a bigger conversation about lateral violence, because it's the reason why a lot of young people are taking their lives. A lot of young people are saying no and shying away to big opportunities, and providing them with a great sense of shame and of anxiety to be in these spaces. And it really is such a shame, because like we said, lateral love, like we all know that colonization was such an awful thing, and that it has devastating, rippling effects. It wasn't just some event that happened. It's the structure that has been built, and it affects everything that we do. But now that we're not able to say, fuck the white man and all that kind of stuff, we're starting to look side by side and hurt the people next to us. And I've experienced what lateral love can be like, how empowering and beautiful and motivating it can be. But I've also experienced, even this past week, I really had a hard time even coming to this event, because I was filled with anxieties about like, well, what if I see people that have said really awful things about me, or who have made me feel unsafe? And then I go back to what I said in the beginning about community and about showing up. I really owe it to not only my younger self, but also to a lot of young people who are 100% who are going to be in experiences like this, and show them that like, you show up, you smile, you hold your head high, you be proud of the things that you've done, you walk, your truth. Only you know what is in your heart and in your intention. It's between you and the Creator, and you trust in that, and that lateral violence will kind of just bounce off of you like a bullet ricocheting. It's really what it comes down to. But I think that there definitely needs to be a bigger conversation about the kind of trauma that is like festering and manifesting itself in really awful attacks against each other. Like, it is not the vibe at all.
No.
Well, and I think you mentioned a few things there of like, I feel like a lot of the lateral violent people online are just reinforcing the tactics that we learn through colonization, and this divide and conquer mentality, and also this recreating this hierarchy of like, oh, you have too much, you're more powerful than me. And it's like, well, no, there's enough abundance for everyone. And how can we start to reevaluate the way that we look at abundance and wealth and success? Does success look the same for all of us? Probably not. So I love that you brought up that usually it's just like the effects of colonization and how we got to this place. For you, Adeline, have you, like, how do you reclaim your power if you are in laterally violent spaces? Or how do you reclaim your power? Have you gone through lateral violence, and how do you reclaim your power?
No, not online. Not online. I watch you all go through it. I watch you all go through it, and it's. I always say you all are like these like modern warriors. You all are like it's just fascinating. It's fascinating when that starts to kick through. And I mean, I've had people come and not necessarily online, but behind closed doors and say, "Well, why are you the person to make that decision? Why are you the person to, what, do you remember you're half black? It's like all these. It's a constant thing, and these are things that I'm thinking of constantly. Hey,
She said F lateral violence.
yeah. And these are already things that I'm battling with internally. These are already things that I'm constantly have already internalized and battle, and then I have to experience that from somebody in the community. It's always, like I said, it's the most heartbreaking. It's the part that hurts the most. You're just like, what did I do? Did I do something? You're calling all your friends. You're calling, your elders, everybody. Like, did I do something wrong? What am I supposed to be doing here? But like Shayla said, this is the first time we're being, on these platforms, being given this space. Sometimes I'm just super overwhelmed by it all because I'm just like, how is this all happening? Like I was saying earlier, I'm like, okay, what are you all up to? We all need to like catch up real quick because I have a hard time keeping up with everybody, And so that lateral, I really love that lateral love because that is something that I love ceremony because it's one of the most tender spaces for me. The most kind, loving spaces for me. And I just always wonder, what would that look like if we can just put that everywhere? Like what would that feel like? What would that world be like? So I feel like we all know that's what we're aiming for. We all know that that's what we want. And so I feel like as long as there's a collective desire, collective consciousness, maybe one day we'll get past it. But it's something that I don't experience on the level that you all experience it on, and I watch y'all, and I give you all like so much props because again, I feel like our influencers, are whatever you wanna call it, content creators, are like these warriors that digital warriors that it's crazy. Like I love futurism, so that's how I view it. This is futurism. We're in the digital age.
Scott, did you have anything to add on to that? Or
There was like so many things that you were saying, and I was just like, yes. But for me, like with my journey with lateral violence, it's been a little different because I kind of grew up in an isolated community. And in the community that I grew up, it's a very strong Christian presence, and Christianity is still very prevalent there. So me and my mom, we kind of grew up, with ceremony, and, growing up, going to powwows and, powwow dancing and attending sweats. And, it was I was getting a lot of hate from my own community at a very young age when I was, still developing as a child, still trying to develop my sense of identity. So that's something that I always think of too, is just how rampant it's been running in our communities for years now, and I'm really happy that we're having this conversation and how we could change lateral violence into lateral love. And I think we are seeing it now with the way that a lot of these Indigenous influencers and creators and artists are carrying themselves and supporting each other, supporting our work as well too. I really try and do that. I always try and block the hate out with the light, Light really does shine out all the darkness. And, I've always connected with my elders and my knowledge keepers, and they always just told me just to be kind, and that's something I've always lived my life by, was killing everybody with kindness and killing that lateral violence with lateral love as well too. But yeah, it's definitely something that's still, like Adeline was saying, really runs rapid, and a lot of Indigenous influencers kind of get the shit end of the stick on that because they're constantly attacking you peoples and us, and it's very it's very taxing, not only on ourselves and our spirits and our identities and our energies. I think it's everyday people, everybody's work to kind of change that, you know, and what Adeline was saying and how we should bring those feelings of ceremony and, you know, that love and that support that we have for one another, just bringing it into your everyday life is really important. That's something that I always really channeled myself. Like everything that we do is a part of ceremony, you know, whether we're gathering like this is ceremony right now. And, you know, we have all of our ancestors and our knowledge keepers and our spirit guides filling this room, and they're all probably conversating with each other right now, probably gossiping too. But, you know, like it's just living your life every day as if you're in ceremony, you know, leading with love and ensuring that you're leading with kindness. That's really what is important, and kind of leading by example is the way that I always lived my life, you know, because I know there are youth looking towards me and Kyron and Shayla and Adeline and all of you too as well too. You know, there are youth in all of our lives that are really looking up to us and seeing the way that we treat ourselves, seeing the way that we talk to ourselves, seeing the way we talk to other people, you know. So it's really important to kind of lead by example, you know, kill them with kindness, you know. I always said hate and, you know, violence is colonizer's tool, you know, and we are not colonizers, y'all. We are fucking deadly. And it's time we start acting like it, you know? So, yeah, just kill them with kindness and lead with love always.
Can I add one more thing really quickly? Scott just reminded me of something. I just wanted to remind everybody to just be gentle and patient, especially with our young people online. And it really got me thinking, like, when did we, like, this whole cancel culture phenomenon that's happening of, like, make somebody, like, just dig into somebody so bad over one thing that they never want to return to the internet. You completely, like, deplatform them over something really small that's not really, like, that big of a deal. But hypothetically, let's say they did make a mistake and they did do something that should be addressed. Why aren't we addressing it in ways that we were taught how to do, with respect and with patience and being mediators, instead of grabbing our torches and our pitchforks immediately to make this person hurt, when a lot of these young people, most of them, pretty much all of them, are traveling on roads that have not been traveled on yet. They are forging paths in industries where other Indigenous youth do not exist. So a lot of the times it's like walking through a hallway that's dark and we're just trying to figure out what's going to be there. And we don't know. And for a lot of the times, we're also the only Indigenous people in the room, in the space, on the set, and whatever. And when you see another Indigenous person, you're like, like, you feel safer because they're not safe spaces. And so I just want to give that perspective to people who may kind of like turn their noses up against like young Indigenous people on the internet who are forging these new spaces and being these trailblazers. They are scared. Everything is new. It is really fast paced. There's a microscope under everything that you do. And when something does need to be addressed, because not everybody is perfect and young people make mistakes all the time and they will continue to, how can we take it upon ourselves, like just a call to action, like next time you see something like that, like try to put yourself in that young person's shoes. Maybe they posted something that was a little bit problematic and you didn't totally agree with it. Ask them where they got that teaching. Ask them where they learned that from, who taught them that, and then maybe try to understand that way, or have a private conversation with them behind closed doors instead of screenshotting text messages from them and blasting them to millions of people.
Yeah.
That's traumatizing and it's hurtful and it's violent, and you're gonna teach that young person that not only are they not safe to make mistakes, but if they do, that they will be chastised in front of the entire community for it. And then that person may never go online again, or may never reach out to anybody, or what are they learning from that, right? We don't teach with our fist. We teach with love and kindness and being gentle. And our young people do deserve that. And it shouldn't change just because they exist in an online space versus in the community. You wouldn't treat a young person in the community who made a mistake that way. You just wouldn't. And so we need to really reframe that way that we're thinking. And I'm like aging out of the youth age. I'm almost 30 now. But for a lot of these young people, like I said, like they don't know what's happening. Like they're just learning. They're just babies still. And they really do deserve that gentleness, and they deserve mentors who are gonna be safe spaces to land when they inevitably fall, because they will. and allowing them to get up and learn something from it is going to build leadership. And that's really what lateral love should be about, is ensuring that these young people get the tools in a safe space where they're able to develop as leaders in these spaces, so that the next young people that go into that industry, whether it's acting, modeling, writing, whatever, they have good, healthy leaders that they can then travel in that path. You know, the hallway light gets turned on, and then they say, oh, look, there's someone, and they don't have to tread on like troubled waters to get there. So I just wanted to bring that up, and like just be kind, be gentle, move with grace.
Yeah, I think it comes back to like the 7 sacred teachings and coming back to our teachings of, for me, of like being Nehyao and of being Métis, and how living in balance and in harmony with myself, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, coming back to that spirit connection. I mean, online, I feel like you can feel like there's no spirit there, and that someone's not a human being behind the
Yeah,
screen, but it's
yeah.
actually like, how do we embody, how do we come back to reclaiming our spiritual connection to ourselves and to others? And so we have 10 minutes to wrap up the last few questions from me, and then we're going to actually take it to the audience for a half hour. So if you have any questions, I believe there's a mic somewhere back there that you can go up to, I believe, right? Yeah? Okay, cool. But the last question for each one of you, how do you remain rooted to your identity in a very fast-paced digital space? And then is there any advice for the younger generation of Indigenous youth out there, specifically to your industry itself? Like, what would your advice be to the younger gen? So I don't know, whoever wants to start.
I will.
Yeah.
So I became a pipe carrier last year. And that was probably, I've been waiting like for a really, really long time. And just receiving that pipe was like, okay, I'm here now. Like, I'm here now. And it was gifted to me as a no pipe. You're going to need to learn how to say no a lot in the industry you're working in. So here's a no pipe. But just like learning to have a relationship with that pipe in the last year has been like, oh, it's just been life-saving for me. And I have, this is the first time I'm actually publicly sharing that I'm a pipe carrier, because it's something that I've been told you need to keep this to yourself. But going on that journey and keeping connected to my community, like I said, leaving, coming back with my gifts, you know, that has really been my life, like the light that you all are talking about. Like, that's been my light. And so just being connected to community constantly, like every day, every week, calling up Myra, saying, hey, you know, this is what I'm doing. And Myra's, she doesn't like the word elder, so I'm going to stay away from that word. But she has just been, just having that connection to her to bring me back and say, no, you're on the right path. No, it's okay. No, you need to be doing that work. How many of us get to do that? Yes. You know, just having that permission constantly by community members, saying I'm on the right track, telling me that what I'm doing is, you know, okay, because sometimes sometimes I just feel so absolutely alone, even though I am working with other community members. But just that constant love and that constant kindness, like I was saying to a friend, I'm like, everybody around me is so gentle. How did I get so lucky to have gentle people around me? I know that isn't out there for everybody. I know that. So that's why I'm so grateful for that. But that's been my saving grace.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I didn't know that. Congrats.
Congrats for sharing. Yes, that's amazing.
Congrats.
Yes.
Kyron, how do you remain connected to your identity? And is there any advice for the younger gen that you have that are wanting to get into TikTok and social media and storytelling and all that?
A big way to stay grounded and to remain in my identity is just having good mentors. And that's also, it answers your other question, is what kind of advice would I give young people who are trying to get into this? surround yourself with good people, find good mentors who are already doing it and who are doing it well, people who are gentle, people who are patient with you, people who you can trust. And that's a big part of how like if you live your life online, especially as a job, you have no choice but to be constantly staring at screens, and it's really taxing on all four, your body, spirit, mind, and soul. It's really, really, really taxing and exhausting. And so, really cliche answer of like just going out on the land all the time. Like, I'm constantly on the Powwow Trail. I'm like just sitting there barefooted, just like chilling and like making sure. I'm also a dancer. First of all, I was a Powwow dancer when I was younger, but then I also am a traditional Métis dancer, which I don't know if anybody knows. I was a square dancer for 15 years. And so I traveled all across Canada dancing. And so I do things with my body that get me moving, and things that I did when I was a kid, when I was a part of a really great community, like dancing, whether it's Powwow dancing or square dancing, really helps to like take me off of the online space, take off that hat of being online, and just being in nature, being with community, getting my body moving, and allowing all of like, because your body will really bring you back to where you need to be. You don't have to do much. You just need to get yourself in a place where you can be healed and get that kind of homeostasis flowing again. But a big part of that is making sure that you have people around you that are gonna root you, and they're gonna ground you, and they're gonna remind you when you veer off or if you turn into a zombie. Like I have really great people around me, and when I do an event, let's say I've worked, I've been on 4 planes that week, and I'm checked into a hotel and I have a thing in an hour, and I'm just like running on zombie. Like people will tell me, they're like, Kai, you're not yourself. Like you need to take a moment. And, like, and so it's about saying no a lot of the times too. Keeping myself grounded is knowing when I'm taking on too much, and that I don't need to change the world tomorrow, and that I don't need to take on more than I can chew, and that me overworking myself is not going to be helpful to any of the young people that I'm trying so hard to help. It's gonna do harm to them because they're gonna see unhealthy work practices. Kai, why did you take 30 flights in 1 month? That's crazy. And I'm like, oh, because I have a perfectionist complex, and I have a lot of trauma that makes me feel like I don't deserve anything unless I literally exhaust myself to the point of passing out at the table. That's the harsh truth. But then I'm like, but it's not healthy. Don't do that. And so that's a big part of it. It's just remembering to treat your body really like a temple. And I always say, I am at home in my two-spirit body, and I really like to surround myself with two-spirit elders. If you don't know any two-spirit elders, find two-spirit elders, become close with them. They are the best people ever that you will ever meet. They are like just magic. I see them as these like just magic battery packs around me. All of the two-spirit elders who take me under their wing and call me baby and hug me. It's just like fuel. It really helps keep you going. And they also will be the ones to be like, oh, you're going again, and they'll pull you back down and be like, they'll remind you, don't do this. Like, why are you doing that? This isn't like you. That's not you. Like, they keep you grounded, and they remind you what you're doing it for. So that's a huge part about it, just keeping good people around you. And to the young people, don't be scared to take risks. It is always going to be scary. It will never be super easy, not for a long time. So if there's an opportunity that comes a knockin', you owe it to yourself to say yes. All you need is like 15 seconds of courage. I promise you it's not a big deal as you think that it is. You make it this big mountain in your mind, even if it's something so little like coming up on a panel and speaking in front of people. It does get easier, and you saying no to those things is really not gonna help you grow. And just really take risks. Don't be afraid to fall. It's not gonna happen overnight, but if you surround yourself with great people, that's why when I first moved to Toronto, I lived with Scott on his couch, and we were just broke. We were poor. Nobody knew who we were. It was like, and we were just like sitting there in our pajamas, and he's like, I'm gonna be in Vogue. And I'm like, yes, you are. And I was like, I'm gonna get a job because I'm unemployed. I'm gonna have more than $400 in my bank account to my name. And then eventually, as you hang out with people who are like, oh, I'm going to this interview. Oh, I'm going to this fitting. Oh, I'm going to meet with this client. Oh, I have a meeting. Like, they're getting up in the morning, they're going out into the scary world, and they're actually doing it rather than just sitting there on their phone like, yeah, I really want to do this one day. Like, how the F are you going to do that if you just sit there talking about it? Like, so being around really inspiring, crazy, driven, young Nietzsche's who are just like trailblazing and just like absolutely rock stars really makes you realize that if you like keep those people around you, you're going to eventually become that as well. You eventually, your level of like productivity gets raised to a new bar where you want to be on par with your peers. And it's healthy because it gives you this sense of like, oh, they can do it, I can do it. I'm gonna stay in that mindset of being creative. I'm gonna turn my creativity into a routine. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. They think you just, like, because I'm a writer, they'll say, oh, Kai, you just write a video and you film it and then it's a one-off thing. No, I'm writing every day, even if I'm not filming it, because my art has become a routine. It's become a practice. If you want to make your art a job, treat it like a job, get up, clock in, even if you're not going to an office, you go onto your laptop or you get your notepad out or you do whatever it takes to take one foot in front of the other and do the physical routine of making it happen, and then that's how you'll start moving. And don't be scared to get told no. Don't be scared to get told, oh, you're too feminine, oh, your voice is weird, oh, we don't like your hair, oh, you can't dress, which we're all told to be. Don't be scared to be told that, because it's going to happen, and you're not for everybody. And that's why there's like such small representation for Indigenous people in media, is because it's just, but the thing is, it's our time now. It really is, and it's long overdue. And there are so many organizations out there, like Lululemon and like all these other organizations that have big white people money. They are going to be the ones who are funding programs for people like you. And those jobs exist now where they didn't before. And those opportunities are now available. So really just go out there, grab it. You deserve it all. It's long overdue. And I can't wait to see what young people who are Indigenous create next, because so far what I've been seeing has been absolutely amazing. And I want to give a big shout out to Indigenous Fashion Arts and Sage Paul, who I know is like running around and just doing so many different things. Like, that's really what it's all about, is like making sure that events like this can happen and young people can be highlighted and celebrated, and just promoting that good medicine for the 5th millionth time that I've said that. But that's really what it is. And so, yeah, that's the advice that I would give.
Well, you mentioned, is your couch available?
Yeah. If anybody wants to come live.
It wasn't even a couch, it was
might
a
have a
sponge.
couple availability.
I said couch, I meant sponge.
I was given the cue to wrap it up, but I do want to give you time, Scott, if you have any like advice to the younger gen before we take it over to the audience.
I feel like Adeline and Kyron really did emphasize that. You know, finding community and being out on the land is really important. It's something that I do in my daily life to kind of bring me grounding and to bring me, you know, back to my balance and recentering myself whenever I'm feeling, you know, a little too up here or a little too down here, you know, like we're human, our emotions are everywhere. So finding that nature, finding community and being at home with yourself, you know, is really important. You know, you are your biggest fan. You are also your biggest enemy. You are going to be with yourself for the longest period of time on this, in this realm right now. So it's really important to kind of be comfortable and fall in love with yourself, you know, develop a routine, you know. I'm really on my Kris Jenner shit lately. I've been like waking up at like 4 a.m. and like freaking walking on a treadmill, answering emails at like 5 a.m., wondering why nobody's answering, you know, and that works for me and that brings me joy and that gives me energy and that kind of what fuels my body. But, you know, everybody is different. Everybody has different needs and different wants and, you know, different fuels and different things that fuel you. So it's really important to kind of know yourself, you know your passion, know your identity, know your energy, be comfortable with yourself within your body. And then also being out in nature is really important. Getting that vitamin D, whether you're getting it from the sun or from an uncle, you gotta
Wrap it up.
With that, I think we have to wrap it up.
And now it's time to go. But
And
yeah,
time.
Time cut. My mic is off. Just like, can you turn my mic back? But yeah, it's just be at home with yourself, love your community, take care of nature, be one with nature. That's really important.
Yeah, I think it always is returning to that ceremony and that personal ceremony within ourselves, but also with each other. And so, with that, I want to turn it to all of you. If you have any questions for anyone on this panel, for all of us, there is a mic at the back there. I believe I see it, yes.
For her, she'll be taking questions as well.
And if you want to just introduce yourself too, so we know.
And if you're single or not.
Okay, this is a little low. Introducing myself, Lau Ete Swale. I go by @Supanative online. Most of my family call me Buffalo, and I'm from the Coast Salish territory, so we're from the Fresh Coast or the left coast. And my question to you is, I've been asked by Pfizer to do some voice recordings for Indigenous Day, so that'll be upcoming, and they want to roll it out. How do I approach dealing with a big company like that? I didn't agree with doing the vaccinations, but I did because of my work. And I work with elders sometimes, and I need to be careful and protect them and protect community when I go into a community to do some of the work that I do. So what kind of advice can you give me to work with a big company like Pfizer?
Kai, I believe you did a vaccine campaign.
Call me out.
How did you navigate your vaccine campaign, Kai?
Tell us more about this. Yeah, I did 2 campaigns. They were not pro-vaccine campaigns. I did 2 campaigns talking about vaccines, and I want to make that very clear because there's a lot of misunderstanding about that, and I've actually lost friends because of doing that campaign. People have unfollowed me and blocked me and told me straight up that they were like doing that and been like, I cannot support you anymore, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, peace, like, bye. You don't have to like announce that you're leaving. But that's the thing is like, when you get asked to do things like that, it really, at the end of the day, I thought about my individuality. I have my own voice, I have my own beliefs. At the end of the day, everything that I put onto the digital space is gonna be from my own perspective. I don't have people writing my captions. I don't have anything like that. It's always my voice and what do I believe in. And so when I got approached by these campaigns, I had already been posting about vaccines. Not saying, hey everyone, go get vaccinated right now, but saying like, hey everyone, here's information that I trust that's about the vaccines. You can go and read it here. Here's some other really great resources. Make up your own mind. That's what I was already doing on my social, just like everybody else was for the last 2 years. Like everyone had an opinion about the vaccines, whether you were for them or against them. So when I got approached by some of them were like different reserves. Some of them were like Health Canada, things like that, asking me, hey Kai, will you accept this fee to post a video talking about this? And I obviously was initially like, oh my God, I'm gonna get canceled. Oh my God, I shouldn't do this. But then I was like, no, wait, I've already been doing this. Everybody else is doing this. Okay, like, what do you want me to say? And then I thought, oh, no. For something like this, it's not what do you want me to say? It's what can I use this for? What can I say? What kind of message can I push? And I was really strict with the people that I was in talks with who wanted me to do this campaign. I made sure that I did not get a script. I wrote everything myself. They had to approve it, obviously, but I wrote everything completely my own. Not once did I say, you know, the vaccines are amazing, go and get them. Or not once did I say, don't get vaccinated, that's crazy. I just said, hey everyone, as most of you know, I got vaccinated, as did majority of the world. And I said, these are the reasons why I got vaccinated. I'm telling you my reasoning for it. I'm explaining the thought process I had and the resources that I used. Some of them were like articles that I linked to. Go out and do your research, and then you make your decision based on your community. What does your community need? And so it wasn't me telling people to get vaccinated. It was me really just highlighting that people have a choice and that it's up to them to educate themselves and to make the choice that sits the best with them. Because I know a lot of people who didn't get vaccinated for whatever reason, and they have legitimate reasons, and I was okay with that. I was like, I'm best friends with people who won't get vaccinated, and it's just the way that the world works. And it wasn't a situation where I was like putting people down for it or anything. It was just I was doing my job and what I believe in and giving information out. And so I think that that's what you should do too. At the end of the day, it's going to be you that's going to take the heat. Be prepared for the heat because you're going to get it. And make sure that whatever you say, you stand behind and you believe. And for a lot of people, I think they turned down doing that campaign because they didn't want the heat. Or I know people who did do the campaign and then 2 days before it was supposed to go live, pulled out because they just didn't want to have that conversation. But I was okay putting myself into that line of fire and being a part of that conversation because I truly believed in it. And I believed in bringing that perspective. And that's something that you're going to have to learn if you start to do things like that, is like you have to be able to stand firm in what the choices you've made and take accountability for those choices and don't run from them and blame it on other people. Like, you were not manipulated into doing this. You wrote this, you filmed the video, it's up to you to take that kind of onus over it. And then just make sure that you're proud of it and that you're doing what you think is right and that is helpful for the community. That's the only advice that I can give.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I think coming down to your values and like, can you live up to those values if you're questioned by those values? And just because of time, I do want to go on to the next question. Thank you, Kai.
Ani, I'm gaining in the go. Take Shane Donjba. Hi, my name's Emma. I'm actually the marketing support person for IFA. But I had a question about how, like, it's like a two-parter. So I was wondering, like, how important was it for you to, I guess, move to the city, or like kind of to, I don't want to say leave your community because you never really do, but how important was it for you to come to the city? Did it was it for more opportunity or something like that? And then also, what would be like your recommendations for someone to move to the city, or if they went home, to move back? So, homie, what?
Thank you for that question.
Well, I actually moved to Toronto from my community to pursue a post-secondary education. It wasn't by choice. If anything, I would have loved to stay in Waskaganish and studied there, but unfortunately, there's not a lot of opportunities there for Indigenous youth, especially if you want to pursue a career in fashion. I don't know if it's like this all over. I feel like it's kind of, in a lot of Cree communities where I'm from, there's a lot of emphasis on sports and health. And, a lot of artistic careers aren't really put on a platform. They're not really promoted as much. It's not really, it's not really the norm to be told to pursue a career in fashion. It's more the norm to pursue a career in sports or health because that's what you can give back to your community. You could go back and move away. But yeah, it was definitely an adjustment. I had to sacrifice a lot of my own personal stuff, such as family and, some of my goals as well too, to kind of pursue a career in fashion. It was really hard being away from my family and everything, but luckily when I went to college, I was able to be connected with the Indigenous center there. So if you are an Indigenous student and you are leaving your community, that's something I do recommend, is getting connected to the Indigenous Resource Center that is available at your college, because that truly helped me kind of find the community that I needed out here in Toronto, because I didn't know anybody here. I didn't know anybody, and I was a little lost and didn't know where to go. So I was able to establish my own community through the Indigenous education and center at Humber College, actually. Shout out to Humber again. And then eventually that led me to finding more friends, finding more community members and finding more organizations to get involved with, partnering up with Anishinaabe Health Toronto. They really helped me with my Two-Spirit journey, my Two-Spirit identity, because they actually have counselors there who are Two-Spirit as well too. They have Two-Spirit knowledge holders, So it's, I feel like, yeah, finding that community when you're in school, like just going to that Indigenous Resource Center really helped me because everybody knows everybody. And when you realize that in Native country, like everybody knows everybody. Like I know you over there and you probably know my cousin. Like you over there probably know my cousin as well too. Like we're all just cousins here. But yeah, that's kind of my advice, I guess.
Yeah, I also left. I moved to Vancouver at 18, and that was to attend Vancouver Academy of Dramatic Arts. And so there, my band funded monthly living for me. But outside of that, I was living off of like $350 a month. And so it was really hard and it was really challenging, but I think it comes back to that sacrifice. Like, what sacrifices are you willing to give up? And it's gonna have like a lot of discomfort, but just know there's that vision in mind, and connecting with people and mentors and connecting to different Indigenous folks within Vancouver gave me a sense of home. And so my advice would be seek out those resources and also that training. I know there's a ton for Indigenous, not ton, but like there is for Indigenous folks. And Adeline, did you have something to mention, or should I go to the next?
I just want to quickly say, and if you end up having to go home, that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, like you didn't fail. That's not just your journey. It's
Exactly.
okay to go back home. I want to add.
Touche. We got 5 minutes left, so a couple more questions. If you just want to introduce yourself.
Ani Bojo, Riley Kucherin, but I'm a Des Moulin from Bigtugang Anishinabeg. Engaged, but open and poly, so call me Scott.
Oh.
No, we know each other. We know each other. My question is, do you worry or think about generational divides in digital spaces? Because presumably there's lots of elders or olders who aren't in these spaces. Maybe they made it to Facebook, but didn't make it to Instagram or Snap or TikTok. And so how do you try to include, or, because is there going to be a gap in communication because they're not on those spaces? What do you think about that?
That's interesting.
Honestly, a lot of the knowledge keepers and the people that I would prefer to be sitting on panels or, you know, learning from are people within the community who aren't even on social media. And yeah, I completely agree that there is a divide right now between people who are on online spaces and those who choose not to be. You know, it is really tough to navigate and really tough to kind of, you know, you can't force somebody to be on social media. You can't force somebody to do a Zoom call if they're not comfortable, but it's really important to kind of also keep those people in mind as well too when you're doing stuff like this. Like, I know with other events, like there's been events that have been filmed at like, you know, been streamed at like elder centers, you know, just streamed at places where we know elders are gathering, but you know, don't really have the equipment or the resources or the knowledge to kind of connect to social media. So it's like finding those people who will help bridge those gaps and, you know, ensuring that nobody's kind of left out, because unfortunately, we really are moving towards a digital space, whether we like it or not. You know, that's just the way society and the world is turning towards. But it's up to us as well, too, to also be those middle ground people and to help, you know, establish those connections, establish those bridges between our elders and, you know, our youth as well, too. And we're seeing it, you know, through the use of social media platforms or documentaries and movies. You know, we see a lot of youth going out into the communities and, you know, creating these art projects based around our elders. And I think it's really important, and something that's I really emphasize is because, you know, a lot of Indigenous cultures, a lot of our nations, we're oral history people, you know, and a lot of our history is passed down orally. Like, we're not writing Bibles, you know, to kind of give the next generation, but we are seeing more of our youth and our artists, you know, taking up these spaces by creating, you know, fashion or creating documentaries, you know, creating content on TikTok, you know, creating TV shows, you know. And it's really important that we kind of work as these middle ground people and not forget our elders too, because I'm really happy that you really brought that up, because our elders are constantly being left out within this digital space, and they shouldn't be, because, you know, we wouldn't be here if it weren't for them. So I think we all have a duty to kind of build that bridge and to kind of gap that or build that gap, you know.
Yeah, I'm just having flashbacks of trying to teach my grandpa how to use TikTok. I mean, but it is about making those steps, and I think also it's a good check-in for each one of us of like taking these connections offline as well, and really coming back to in-person events and in-person workshops. Next question. Thank you so much for your question, by the way.
Hello, my name's Adriana. I'm 16, and we actually drove from Pennsylvania yesterday to come.
Oh, wow. Welcome.
Happy to have you.
Welcome.
Thanks. So, I love your guys' outfits. You guys look amazing, and you guys have become such an inspiration for me. My question is, what inspired you to begin your career in fashion, and how do you like plan on growing?
For me, I think it was because there was a lack of our voices in a lot of these spaces. And so for me specifically, talking from a wellness industry lens, when I went to yoga teacher trainings, I really saw no Native people at all. And I saw appropriation of our teachings and of our spirituality and our wellness practices. And so for me, when I was in yoga teacher training, I wrote down what I wanted to do. I wanted to be the first Indigenous person to be on Yoga Journal and then also be a global yoga ambassador. And that came from seeing the harm that was created in those spaces. And so for me, my vision came to wanting to shift that by embodying that action and that future that I was seeking. And so for me specifically, it was the lack of Indigenous inclusion within those spaces. I don't know if anyone else wants to answer.
Literally the same as well too. Lack of Indigenous representation. You know, I grew up on fashion magazines and fashion shows and fashion television. Not once did I see an Indigenous person growing up. And you know, you think that would kind of like, you know, be like, oh shit, we don't deserve there. But that actually fueled my fire. That I was like, no, we deserve to be on there because I seen all the beautiful fashion I was raised with. I seen my friends, I seen my aunties, I seen my uncles, my grannies, and you know, I just wanted us all to be in these magazines as well too, because we deserve to. And yeah, that just really, really fueled my fire to do the work that I do.
I'm being told that we gotta wrap it up. So I'm gonna do I'm gonna bend the rules a little bit though. I'll take the last question.
So I want to say thank you so much for your wisdom and knowledge that you shared with us today. I am a parent of a fashion, you know, inspiring teenager. My question is, with everything you just said about online and digital, and what about the mental aspect? Again, you did talk about being in nature. Anxiety, depression, all those things that are like within our community right now. I'm sorry, our like country, like we're just having like a big problem with that. And I'm sorry, we're from US, so. Also, so what do you think would be helpful? I mean, is it just a mentor, or do you think we should go through like the therapist way and the medicine way? What do you consider is the best way to handle, I guess I don't know how to say it, just the anxiety and depression and different things like that. ADHD, you know, all those different things. Thank you.
Well, I think first and foremost, social media and the internet especially, they exasperate a lot of those things. They make them, they trigger a lot of that in people, and because there's so much energy, or not energy, so many ideas and facts and knowledge and headlines and content constantly being thrown at you like a vacuum, it's really, really overwhelming a lot of the time, and you can get hit with like something really funny, and then the next half a second, it's like something horrible happening in the world, like life ending. And so we're constantly navigating what we take in these online spaces. And so to your child or whoever you're mentoring, give them resources to understand that they have the power to see what they want to see on their feeds, and they can utilize all the different tools that these apps have to really screen what they're taking in. And you can even, there are even apps to help like limit your screen time. Taking lots of breaks is really important too. The internet can be a great place to find a lot of resources as well. So nowadays, counseling a lot of it is done online, virtually. If they're a young person and they maybe can't travel or they have accessibility issues, you can talk to somebody via video counseling. And also recognizing too that like, mental health doesn't always have to look like practitioners who are non-Indigenous, who have titles and degrees, who are prescribing medication. But mental health can also look like sitting with your elders and sitting with people who already do that work and who are by every right, in the sense, practitioners. They just don't have the Western titles, and recognizing that a lot of that mental health, the mental health strategies that you can employ in your life come from very little things like that. I was told, you know, when I called the Hope for Wellness line, all you have to do is halt, you know. Are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you tired? Like all of these things, like making sure that you're keeping those in balance, especially when you're doing so much work online, because it can really, really, really feel overwhelming, and you can feel like just one of 100 million people. And there are so many awful headlines, especially in Canada. Every week we're literally uncovering new awful stories to be sharing with each other. And we need to make sure that we're sharing a lot more positive things too, and highlighting those when we get the chance, because those are really going to have an effect on young people who are just constantly all day for 10 hours a day scrolling through things. Feed their content things that help them. That's why I do a lot of like mental health stuff too, making sure like, hey, I'm Kai, like this is how you can manage your anxiety, like things like that, because people are going to see it, and it's a nice break from seeing all the awful things that we have to see online sometimes.
And just to wrap things up, I would also say, like, for practitioners and therapists to have a better understanding of systemic, historical, and personal trauma. I feel like a lot of those people don't really understand what we're navigating on all those levels. And for me personally, I go to the land, but I also use flower essences, meditation. I create a relationship to myself, and I have like a sacred space where I do all this work, and speaking things out, getting that energy out of your body, like through movement, through writing, through, you know, sound frequencies. There's so many modalities now that we have access to online. So I think it's both, and it's like understanding the historical trauma and the personal systemic stuff, but also like what are modalities that we can actually bring into our everyday lives, and then commit to that for each day, you know? So thank you so much. I just want to give a round of applause for each person on this panelist. Also giving a round of applause to Indigenous Fashion Arts for putting this together. And then giving a round of applause for each one of you here. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Also, make sure you support Scott, Adeline, and Kyron. You can follow their work online, get to know a little bit more of them. And I think you'll also see a few of us in the fashion show and probably around this weekend. So thank you so much. Hi, all my relations.
Miigwech. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You did so